everybody. Welcome to the Calling All Heroes podcast. I am George, and I am joined by Wolz.
Hey.
Tim.
Hey.
And our special guest once again, who made such a great impression on everyone last week. We had to have him back. Austin.
Hi. Projecting the voice today.
Very good enunciation.
You can't sit on the stool.
He's sitting on the microphone, guys.
Oh, that's great.
Oh.
Yeah, I got actually 4 different messages saying, we need to hear Austin a little better. And so, I mean, I didn't want to name any names or anything, Danny, Billy, Norman, and Susan. But a few people did say, hey, we can't really hear Austin, so now he's going to speak louder.
Hey.
All right. Anyway, missing this week is none other than Gary Kramer, and he'll be disappointed because we might end up talking about a movie or two, and he'll have missed it. And that's
Pops
sad.
Kramer would.
He may be watching movies right now.
Pops Kramer.
He could. Pops Kramer.
So now I'm in trouble.
Little speed racer nod there.
You'd have been in less trouble if I hadn't laughed so hard about it.
Yeah,
like
George
right now it's going to stick.
Yeah.
George was amused.
Yeah.
Pops
Chim.
Kramer.
Pops Kramer. Hey, Pops.
Okay.
Put a soda.
Moving on.
Speaking of Pops Kramer, I actually got from him. Well, you and I both got some really cool monster magazines of the 80s.
Fangoria's awesome.
Fangoria, as well as some Gore Zone, and that's good stuff.
That for me is like instantaneous nostalgia.
Yeah,
I mean, I just remember seeing those, coming out. They were just incredible. To me, they were incredible. I mean, that was Famous Monsters of Film. Actually, I still get it. They just started it back up again. They had, I don't know, they were having editorial problems, but I mean, that magazine's been in existence since 1958.
wow.
And but I like all the offshoots too. The Fangoria is really cool. But just I love looking at those old horror magazines. They're cool, neat stuff. It's funny how many of those films now have been redone over again, or in the
No, it's funny. There was the one is the Nightmare on Elm Street. It was like the commemorative issue of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5.
Yeah.
And I was flipping through it, and there was something about it. I didn't buy it, but I knew I'd seen it. I remembered my best friend in school, Kurt Rupert, had brought it to class in 7th grade, and the teacher found it, and because we were both looking at it, got sent to the office. I'm like, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we used to smuggle. You know what? That's cool because historically that works for me. We used to smuggle like horror magazines and comics and stuff into school and things like that. And, I guess you weren't penalized for reading at lunchtime or anything like that. But
Right.
You could put it inside your book. The old trick.
I can remember dragging comics to school in between like my binders and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just taking them.
Which, is so much worse than today, where they've mellowed out and they simply bring heroin, marijuana, and guns.
Guns, firearms.
I'm not going to weigh in on this part.
Yeah, probably good. Yeah, probably good.
But yeah. So anyway, we had a few questions this week that we had gotten. One was a really well thought out, laid out question, and
Yes.
Tim, if you could pull out the question there and go ahead and read it for us.
Okay, reading the question. Okay, it's from Ashley. Hey, I have a bit of a question challenge for the podcast. A lot of my favorite reviewers have been doing Marvel feedback lately, and I'd like you guys to weigh in as well. Pretend you're an editor or writer for Marvel, and it's your job to make one of the problem books, Lady Thor, Squirrel Girl, She-Hulk, Gwenpool, Ironheart, Wasp, etc., before they got to this state they are in now. Pitch how you would take these characters and make them a success. The only rules are that you cannot cancel them, and it can't be just a one-off appearance cameo. A miniseries is okay, though. I gave George 2 example pitches in the shop, and he's welcome to share if he wants. I'd like to see at least 2 per person, but after that, how many or few you do is up to you. I can't wait to hear all your thoughts on this one. Good luck. Okay, so that's the question. So we're all going to weigh in on it a little bit. If you want to start from the beginning of the books that are currently running now, before anybody else has gotten a hold of them and got to where the state they are now, I mean, my opinion is, and I like Hulk, so I'm on board with She-Hulk. I always have been. But I like the cat just walked in front of me. The guardian of the podcast. I think the actual storyline that She-Hulk's on right now is not bad. For those people that haven't read it, she's been through several, not incarnations as much as Bruce Banner Hulk is, but Okay, so talking about She-Hulk again, the current run that's going on now. I'm not touching upon all the other ones, but I do have an idea for all of them together. I think just keep up like with one artist, stick with one artist, and someone that's good. You know, like I'm referring back to stuff like if you're talking about She-Hulk, the John Byrne run on She-Hulk was really cool because it broke that fourth wall. She was talking to the reader, and that might not like ring with everybody that's sitting here, and they're like, it's pretty Ferris Bueller of you, talking to
But then it became this huge thing with Deadpool, who
Right.
did the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a decade later,
Yeah.
My wife and I watch House of Cards, and
Oh, yeah.
and Kevin, he always does asides, and I find it
Yeah.
interesting. So when you mention it, I
Yeah.
think it's cool. Some
Yeah.
people may not, but
some
I like
people
that.
might. Yeah, some people
I
are
enjoy
more
that.
the serious reader, and they want the story and everything.
Yeah.
But it when it comes down to the end of the day, it is what you like. And if you don't like it, don't buy it. I mean, that's the way it is with, there's like a billion books in here. Obviously I can't buy every one.
Right.
I get the stuff I like, snakes.
That's a great point, though,
Snakes
about-
and sparklers. That's what I want.
That's a great point, though.
You know?
That's a great point, though, about sticking with the same artist. 'Cause-
Yeah, I mean, because just not getting off the topic, but like take an example, the run that Superman's on right now. Gleason, I mean, I can't say enough about Gleason. I love his stuff, but like it's just like a special thanks to Gleason in this issue. He's not doing anything.
Right.
The issue that came out Wednesday, kind of disappointing because that's the reason I buy the book.
Right.
I don't buy the book because I'm a big Superman freak. Sorry, Austin, but. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, if you stick with an artist, people are going to stick around. I mean, look at McFarlane, how long he did stuff. People were following him everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
That's
Every book he went to, people jumped onto it.
Yeah, case in point. I'm
Yep.
a McFarlane geek. I can't help it.
Well, there's guys that just have those, even if it's a cult following, and then the guys that are the superstars. If you take, I don't know, just to pull one out of the mix here, like the Luke Cage book, that one that came out that they basically then stopped, that kind of looked like Fat Albert art.
Cartoon.
Well, that brings it
cartoony.
to my idea because, as always, I'm the defender of Squirrel Girl. And
You are.
Yeah, well, and I thought about
Well,
it.
you
and
did read
You
it.
hit on something really good.
did
and,
read it.
And Pops Kramer, if he were here, could elaborate on the fact consistency is really important.
Right.
And that to me, on any of these titles, that is paramount. But I was thinking about that character in general and the artwork on her book, or at least what I've seen in the Squirrel Girl comics that I've read. It's sort of more of like what was in the Luke Cage. It's sort of Cartoon Network cartoony.
Right.
And listen,
Right.
I don't dislike that, but I don't think it fits that type of character.
Okay.
Right.
I would do Squirrel Girl more with somebody that's a little more solid. Not and it's sort of like in a superhero way. You know what I mean?
Right.
Less cartoony. I mean, Squirrel Girl, come on. But I've seen
Right.
Art Adams do covers with her image on it. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
But,
No, go
but
ahead.
my idea was I would utilize her squirrelkin sort of kind of in the way that the mole man uses his moloids.
Yeah.
Like she would have an empire of these squirrels that could help her out wherever she may be. I would imagine squirrels are on somewhere all over the earth.
I remember in in 8th grade, a girl calling me and my friends moloids, and while they were offended, all I could think of was how I have to have this girl because she knows what a moloid
She
is.
knows what a mole is. But yeah, I would just probably take that book and turn it, just even though you're thinking Squirrel Girl, and just make a little more of a serious tone on it. Because I read an origin that was interesting, how they try to shelter her from the world and sort of hide her, and keep her away from things, sort of like Spider-Man's, Pete Parker's, always sort of kind of keeping that under wraps.
Right.
I think just sort of bring it into the foreground and give her more of just a little more powerful in that aspect, I guess.
I think, too, you have to play the irony of it because Squirrel Girl sounds silly. And then when you see the cartoony nature of the art, that means, to me, then that just solidifies, oh, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And you judge a book by its cover. That book looks to me on the wall like it's for kids ages 7 and under. Put it by the My Little Pony and the Strawberry Shortcake and Squirrel Girl. And so to do a more serious take on it, I think if nothing else, people have to do a double take. Like, wait, maybe that's not what I thought it was.
You're 100% right. That's what I was going for. I mean, make it a little more serious. I know, like I said, Squirrel Girl. Okay, it does seem funny, but I think you could pull it off that way.
Kelly,
rather than
So, like, do a
cartoon.
cover with, like, her in an alleyway where she's perched on a trash can and the squirrels are just eating people's bodies.
I don't know if we go that far. But
Walking
so
Dead.
I didn't want the squirrels eating
Squirrel
anybody.
Girl in Marvel Zombies would be terrifying.
Okay, but here's the thing: is who
But they are
you're-
cognizant, and they can sort of like, but basically for good. I don't want the squirrels
like
doing anything
ants for
destructive.
Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Sort of. I know it's not that
So-
original, but I'm
there you
thinking
go.
that
So
way.
other than Mr. Squirrel Girl fan, number one fan himself, Wolz,
Yeah.
do you guys buy Squirrel Girl every month?
Negative.
No. Would you think that there's something that could happen? Then maybe like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy that. Probably not. Now, if Marvel says Kelly Jones is doing 12 issues of Squirrel Girl, who's buying it then?
I'm down.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's all. It's. I mean, the story is important, but it's all about the artist for me.
and I think that that's true probably for at least half the people buying it, which would
Yeah.
mean that there's no way that number doesn't climb. And you're either committed to it or you're not. And I think Marvel, they're half-assing it because that's another story. We'll keep going on this.
In 1988, did you ever think that Jim Lee would be doing anything for DC? You know, boom. Guess what? Jim Lee's in DC. Jim Lee does all kinds of DC stuff. Guess who has all Jim Lee's DC stuff? Me.
Tim Amy.
Yeah.
But that,
Yeah.
And you ended up buying ultimately more DC stuff because that kind of let you peer into the window of what was in that world. And
Yeah, I mean, case in point, Liam Sharp doing Wonder Woman with the Rebirth. I got in on that, even though he was doing every other book. It's like, all right, I'll deal with this schmuck that's doing it this week because next week Liam Sharp's going to be back.
Right.
You know. Go ahead.
But I feel like that's 50-50, only because what you said does hold true. A lot of it's half and half. It's half story, half artwork.
Yeah,
And
goes
so a lot
hand
of
in
people,
hand.
yeah, and they do. And a lot of people go for the artwork, but with a lot of the mainstays in comics, you've seen a lot of different artists be able to tackle the same character as long as the story is worth them tackling, because you're not ever going to have a good artist just go on to a terrible book if they know that it's not going to be something that people purchase. But why would they waste their time doing that? Versus you have an established story that people are interested in, and then you can add quality artwork to it. So I think the story is just as important to draw out good artists.
Well, and I agree with that, but I also think, though, to that extent, it's not just grabbing a good artist; it might be also grabbing a good writer.
Yeah.
I know Chris Claremont said when he and Byrne were doing X-Men, Chris Claremont said, "Put me on the book that sells the least," and it was the X-Men, and he made it sell the best.
Right.
And so I think there's still kind of that little challenge in there. And I don't pretend to know the intimate details of how those dealings go. I'm sure with superstar guys like, I think Kelly Jones is a superstar. I mean, in the world of comic
He
books,
wouldn't say so, but yeah.
In my heart, he is.
Yeah.
I think the fans think so.
he's probably a guy that they have to call on a case-by-case basis as opposed to being a staffer that gets assigned to a book,
Yeah.
is I guess what I'm saying. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that no matter where a book's at, if you entice an artist with working with a good writer, or an artist like, I think Kelly Jones, I mean, he's written books before, written comics, say, take this over. To me, to that extent, no matter how bad it is, if you have the chance to be the one to pull it out of the gutter, that's I don't know. I think
And then
that's attractive.
they have the opportunity to completely change the entire course of the character.
Right.
Like Bruce Timm's doing the animated series for Batman, and then subsequent comics that linked with that kind of redefined what Batman was to kind of putting him into a new scope of what he is today. So I think, like, for my take on the question, I think Wasp, if I were to do one, it would be Wasp. And focusing it more from the story side than the artwork side, because a lot of the characters that were mentioned in that question, She-Hulk, Wasp,
Lady Thor,
they seem to be more supporting characters in the larger stories whenever it comes to the female characters, versus them having their own independent, strong stories to run on. And even if that strong story is linked to another one, like Wasp's husband was one of the first characters to ever, like, really explore bipolar disorder in comic books. And using that to be able to relate to an entire different group and demographic of people, you could sell Wasp to help promote the stories of battered women.
Right.
You could sell Wasp in a way that this is a woman whose husband is constantly in the limelight. What is her story, though? Aside from her being an accessory to Hank Pym, what is her story, and how does she actually fit into this larger, grandiose universe? And then how does she deal with the stresses of always being the second fiddle, Ant-Man and the Wasp? Like, you could play off of that, because it's rarely ever seen from that perspective.
Well, it's my belief that Squirrel Girl, basically, the new series, it's a real old story. It was based on an old Steve Ditko story, but the whole concept, I believe, was to empower young women.
Yes, sir.
That's what I get out of it anyway. Mm-hmm. That's why I wanted to make it more of a serious thing, sort of like what you're saying.
I think that would be fantastic.
But I just, not to go back to it, but the idea of putting powerhouse artists on books and then committing for a year, I think that there's probably books on that wall from Marvel that aren't selling, but that doesn't mean they're not any good.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you read Silver Surfer.
I do.
And month before last, it sold 6,500 copies nationwide to the retailer. I had 3. 2 of them are still there.
Right.
So the argument could be made that less than 1,500 people in the country read Silver Surfer. Not because it wasn't good. It's just, what's the reason? Yeah. And so I think that there could be other books on that wall that are good. So what do you got to do to kind of hook people or bait people into at least giving them a chance? I think that's what Marvel's done that's wrong. Is it my turn?
Go for it. Hit it.
What I would do, trying to play the middleman on this, is if you've got, like, kill Wolverine and they kill the Incredible Hulk and they do all that stuff. They did it within. I know the Hulk. They did it within the confines of that bloated Civil War II thing, and by halfway through that series, nobody was even buying it anymore. So I think that if you're going to have something where people don't necessarily even know what happened or how it happened, like, play off that idea. To me, I would start right at the beginning of where you wanted to do that and gather up everybody that, if the sales aren't great. Iron Man sales haven't been great for a long time.
Right.
But you gather them all up. Captain America, who you wanted to turn bad for 3 issues or whatever, Take him. Take Iron Man. Take Wolverine. Take the Incredible Hulk. The Fantastic Four, since you can't use them anyway. And you basically have one book that comes out for $2.99 or $3.99 with no variants and no BS, and they've all basically disappeared. They're somewhere else, and we're trying to figure out where they're at. And I don't have it flushed out to the point where I know, but I think that's part of that mystery. And then you have all these underdog characters. You have the Squirrel Girls, the West Coast Avengers. All these characters are basically trying to keep the tentpoles up to the Marvel Universe while they have to figure out.
They're watching the store.
Basically, and they're going to try to find all these heavy hitters. And the idea is, I think that everybody's motivated to not only get behind these characters and you learn who they are while they're trying to solve something that we all care about them solving, and that is finding not the people that are dead, finding the characters we know are alive but they're not here yet.
They're fighting our fight.
Yeah, and we're on board with them and we identify with them because that's us.
To piggyback on that, DC did something very similar to that with the 52 event after the I think I want to say it was after Final Crisis, when Superman disappeared and Wonder Woman kind of went off in hiding, and Batman got lost in time after he got shot by Darkseid with the Omega beams. Yeah. And it was 52 issues, one a week, where they took minor characters like Steel or Booster Gold and really threw them in the forefront of the big Trinity is missing and the world is kind of collapsing, and we're the B team and we have to hold the world up.
Right.
And that was a way that they, right before doing the new 52, and that got a lot of interest into smaller characters. So it absolutely is a successful model, and that could work for Marvel.
And it kind of reminds me of Mystery Men. The way those guys had to go and save, what was it? Who was it? Was it Captain Amazing? Was that his name?
It was something like that.
Yes.
But he was kind of a jerk. Like, this would be a situation.
He was a pompous ass.
And they kept going to him. With this, you wouldn't ever go to them. It would just be, all of our favorite heroes are gone, and we're going to help these guys figure it out. And I don't know, I think that there's something to that, especially in this day and age where people can weigh in. I think that could be manipulated in such a way that we feel like we have a say in how this is moving forward, because it's a common goal. We all want those characters back. And I don't know, maybe there's a little too much pro wrestling in that, but I think that there's something there.
I like your idea, and that's awesome. And I could kind of almost, like Austin just said, I could kind of almost piggyback onto that, because my other idea for these titles, because I can't really speak from experience, I haven't read the other ones, but I mean, I know the question was more of a pre-issue, like, you got these books, what do you want to do with them? But I'm thinking of now, like where they are now. I think, I mean, even though this has been done vaguely before, and everybody can disagree or agree, but why not make like a female quote-unquote Avengers kind of thing? Like, they're all female characters, put them all together and let them do and get a really killer artist on it. You know, I
That
think
would be cool.
that would be neat. I mean, like I say, you don't have to agree with me, but you're saying to hold up the Marvel Universe while the other guys are out in the negative zone somewhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Fantastic Four nod.
Yeah.
I have to admit, though, I mean, just for me, I was thinking about it, listening to all this and thinking about it.
Know what I'm saying?
I was going to say that.
I've always been a fan. I know you are too, of the B-listers. I mean, some
Sure.
of the B-listers have been
The underdogs, you know.
have been
Yeah,
great.
Wally
fan-
Wood's the cat. I mean, where do you see her? Yeah, come on.
Howard the Duck, the
Yeah.
man thing. I mean, I've always
Yep.
loved B characters. I've dug B characters.
And it also attacks something that, and I'm not speaking for him, but it's also something that Kramer would come in, and I think, I don't know, I'd like to think that he would see where I'm coming from on this. I know it really, really bothers him. It's like, oh, there isn't a female Thor, there isn't a female Wolverine,
Right.
there isn't another Hulk. But with things like Wolverine, it's like, okay, you know, X-23, it's like in the absence of Wolverine, there can be a circumstance that we need one.
Right.
And so she reluctantly dons that, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm taking over. I think it plays to the psyche of the reader in a way that this person doesn't want to be this person. She's this person until the real one gets back.
Right.
Again, putting herself on our side.
Right.
And that when they ultimately do find these guys and they ultimately do save them, that's the ultimate rub, the ultimate nod when Captain America is kind of rubbing you on the head going, you guys saved the universe. And I think in that struggle that we're all caring about, you're going to find out who those characters are, and the writers are going to figure it out as they go. I mean, it's something, I don't know. I think that maybe it's a little too optimistic to think that would actually happen, but the other thing, real quick, is to quit putting out these variant covers that you got to buy 50 issues of the crappy one to get one copy of the good one.
And that's where Gary
That
would
goes
come
for
in.
any
Gary would
title.
come in and say, and we've touched upon this, is consistency.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what's really important.
I take it a step.
Consistency.
I agree, but I take it a step further than that. I think it's a bunch of crap that Marvel tries to create this marketing ploy, an illusion that they care about the old fans, and then turn around and take the covers that don't cost 1 cent more to produce, that would appeal to the old fans, and make it so that you have to spend $19.99 on a cover. It's like you're exploiting the fact that the old fans like this stuff. You're not in any way,
the
shape,
book
or
is
form
still shit.
trying to make it, better for us. So, I don't know. I ended my rant there. Gary wasn't here, so I had to go on a rant.
Well, that's all right. It's all good.
Sometimes you need that release.
So I hope we've addressed that. I hope we've addressed that. I think I liked a lot of what I heard there. So
Yeah, Ashley or anybody else, if anybody else has any ideas on it, toss them our way. I like the idea of one-shots. I like the idea of not having to commit past that. I think DC did a great job. All right, so moving on. Austin, we're looking to you. You had something in the world of manga you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, a friend of mine who listened to the last podcast read some of the comics about like the the generational gap between some of us, and was really interested to see, for us when we were going to comic shops was around the time that manga started getting big in the U.S. So a lot of the comic stores also had, they had the entirety of what we normally have, and they had a small section for the Japanese comic books.
I don't mean to cut you off, but if you could, because I know our demographic skews just a little older, could you give just a quick, brief definition of what manga is?
Absolutely. So manga is a Japanese art style, which is their form of storytelling with comics. It reads backwards because that's just what they do in Japan, and a lot of the stories were originally linked to high fantasy or supernatural elements. So people that had powers or could channel chi, transform into different beings, a lot of druid type stuff, which is really interesting. But it's evolved so much now to where the stories have expanded and transcended just having to be stuck in one bubble. And what's really cool is, especially with Japanese culture still being the way it is, where they still have a lot of that older culture, the way that they mix a lot of their myths and legends and stories into a new retelling. And how each of those books also maintains a little bit of that culture. So my buddy's question was, for our predecessors in the comic-loving world, how many people, if any, had the ability to get into manga or were willing to give it a shot, because there's a whole second world of stories out there, and the art is so fantastic. Like you talked about, Tim, it's half and half, and I've never been disappointed with the artwork in any manga book I've ever seen.
That's interesting because I've never once seen it that it didn't turn me off immediately. And I mean, I don't know if it's just where we're coming from, but there's something about it. I immediately don't like it, and
It's just not your jam.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad at all. I just I don't like it. We got a Batman manga book in when I first opened, and I was like, I can't read this. I can't do it, and started to sound like
Pops.
He's going to kill me for that, but that's okay. I read there was a Marvel Zombie one, and I was reading, and I like the fact that it was something different, and it's hard. I guess maybe it is. I am older. It's hard for me to sort of sink into it. I appreciated it. I understood it. I liked what was going on, but I don't know if it will be a steady diet for me.
right.
And I can remember we were talking too that when Joe Maduro was doing the Uncanny X-Men. That style of art, I think that was sort of a precursor of trying to somewhat sell it to older comic audience, maybe.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even.
And I love kind of those kind of styles. I enjoyed his artwork, and I don't know. I think it's hard for me. It's hard to get adjusted into reading that, but I respect it.
That's because that's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Well, see, for me though, it's not even like I'm not even going so far as to say I read it and I didn't like it. I'm saying that at first glance, and maybe I should try to be more open-minded. There's just a lot to read, and when I immediately am flipping through and I don't like the art, and also I think that maybe I'm a little misinformed because it's kind of a narrow view. It's kind of the bigger eyes and the sharp features. Like there's something about it. It always feels to me like it's a quick way out. Like nobody took their time with this. Well, I'm not interested.
And so what I would say to that, just for a little bit more context, versus our Western style of art, where everyone has their own individual style, and they've kind of melded it into what you said. Like there's a Cartoon Network look versus a more traditional comics look. Japanese manga and anime have always kind of followed a similar art style. So the earlier stuff is kind of more bubbly and rounder faces, like you said, big eyes, and the newer, like I'd say circa 2000, it got a little bit more streamlined, a little more hard edges, better shading, everything like that. But now they've kind of found that perfect balance where they have, with some of them even, like a very like realistic drawing style. But the stories, like I said, that go along with it is what really captivates me, because it always meets itself 50-50. Always.
That's where we're at.
And it's really interesting. And then to see a lot of their takes on some of the stuff that we've done. Like, there's a lot of Japanese productions, especially shonen, that have partnered with DC or Marvel and done their own iterations of Spider-Man or Blade or the X-Men. And they've turned out really, really well.
Cool.
So,
well, I would say if you have anything to bring in, I'd give something a chance. If you say, hey, this is right here is what you should be looking at.
Me too.
Because my other assumption about it over the years, like from high school up, is every time I knew somebody that was into it, whatever they showed me usually had a borderline pornographic flavor to it. And I don't know if that's just a subset of it, but it just seemed odd that that's all I ever saw.
Yeah.
Of course, probably speaks to the people that were showing it to me.
Right.
But and then there was a book that I don't know if it would have fallen under that category, but remember that book, Akaido?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember some of that stuff would go from, I don't know if you'd consider that manga or not. Is that what that would be
like,
too?
is it are you talking about Akita?
AKIDO. Like, it would go from a place where it looks like somebody scribbled it to a place where it's like, I don't even know how a human being can draw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, and that was kind of, like I said, and that was an older book, but that's also one of the highest selling, because manga turns into anime, into their animation style. But that's one of the highest selling anime movies of all time.
Really?
And the artwork throughout the entirety of the movie is, like you said, where it's like grandiose, like, how did you draw this by yourself?
Right.
And that's also part of what I appreciate about it versus, some comic books where you have the head artist, but then you also have someone who does the shading, someone who does the color, someone who does this. It's all one person.
I don't know if this plays into it, but I really dig Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a really cool cartoon.
Yeah.
I unfortunately haven't watched any of the reboot, but I thought that was a really neat cartoon, and it sort of reminds me of something in that
borrowed
style.
a little bit from that
I think
flavor.
it borrowed some from it. Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
But that still kind of goes more to like what George was saying with the older style, where they have the big eyes and all that, versus like Afro Samurai, which is
I've actually watched some of that.
with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, it's funny.
So good.
I enjoyed it. I watched a couple episodes.
And that was kind of like the newer style.
Okay.
And now they found like a really nice meld of it. But I really appreciate it because, like, for someone who grew up on Spider-Man, someone who loves Deadpool, where the characters, they have masks on, but they emote very well. That's every character. and manga. Like there's so, and it catches you even in the darkest of the moments where there's that light humor to it just based on the characters themselves. And the stories are very rich because the guys who draw it also are the ones who write it, so they invest so much in it.
Well, there's consistency for you.
Yeah.
The secret word is consistency.
Right? It's the password.
CON.
Well, not to get off the topic of Austin's topic, but going back a little bit to bring in a little bit of meaning to a title that means nothing to anybody right now. Case in point, Stephen Platt on Moon Knight. How many copies did Moon Knight sell? It was like in issue 49. Like 3 everywhere.
54 started.
Yeah.
I remember searching, trying.
You
would
could
go in
not
boxes,
find a copy
you go in
anywhere,
boxes, you get to 53, and then 54 to 60. You couldn't find him.
I mean, where is he now? But still, I mean, that's just an example. You get somebody on there that, I mean, he was a McFarlane disciple.
Spider-Man was like dead, I think, really sort of kind of dead in the water till McFarlane came on. It was really drifting.
Well, because
it was drifting along
in between Ramita and who else that took over in between there.
Well, it
was
Ramita, Ross Andrew. It was cool, but I'm talking like when it got into the high 200s there, when he took over 298, it was really like. Well,
Yeah,
you're almost looking forward to the April Fool's issue of Peter Porker. Spectacular Spider-Ham.
Yeah,
you're almost looking forward.
Almost.
Hey,
but wouldn't you agree? He brought back old characters. I mean, he basically reintroduced, the audience to really cool old Marvel characters, villains and things, and it really propelled that book to being. It went back to being relevant again.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, speaking of McFarlane, I got not one, but 2 copies of Batman number 423 in.
I saw that.
McFarlane cape.
Yeah.
One was on the back. There were 2 issues sandwiched into.
Sounds like something I would do.
Yeah. It was like Tim did it.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're both in real nice shape, and in the Overstreet guide, they book for $15. And I thought, okay, but usually on eBay they're going for less than what the book is. I look them up; they're popping for between $40 and $50 a pop right now.
Yeah.
And I guess McFarlane, obviously with the 25th anniversary image and all the stuff
Well,
going on with that.
that's one of the homage covers in Spawn too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that probably ties right into it. But we had 2 of them, and I thought I wanted to let everybody know on Saturday, September the 23rd is Batman Day. And we'll be celebrating Batman Day. We got free comics. I don't know if you guys saw the cover, but it's Harley Quinn takes over Batman Day, and it's the Dark Knight Returns with his silhouette with a lightning bolt, but then her silhouette's like right alongside him. And it looks like somebody just kind of duct taped her logo over top of his.
Cool.
So we're going to have that. We're going to have a bunch of giveaways, and one of the giveaways is 1 copy of Batman 423.
All right.
Pretty hot book. We'll be giving away every Batman Day. Run from 12 noon to 5 p.m. on the 23rd of September, so we're only 2 weeks away. And as usual, we'll have some food, we'll have some fun stuff to give away, and it should be a good time.
Might possibly be a guy in a Batman onesie pajama suit.
Yeah.
All right.
The killer of that, though, is we have the world's biggest biggest competition that day.
Yeah.
That's also the Baltimore Comic-Con. And,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I won't be able to teleport back here.
You mean you're not skipping the Comic-Con to go?
That is my yearly Christmas.
I will be here. I will be here.
That's Christmas Day to me, right?
Yeah. Tim and I will be doing the Comic-Con on Friday.
We will.
Allegedly.
Somehow.
Yes, somehow, some way.
We got some.
Pops Kramer and I and Brian Brown will be attending it on Saturday.
We got some ideas in the works for the podcast on a Friday podcast.
Yeah. So we're gonna hit some guys up. So.
Stay tuned, true believers.
Please.
Don't get me started, Mr. Rooney.
On a serious note, I think you'll be able to convince some of those guys just to throw something out there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I really do.
We get the
Stay
wrestlers.
tuned. There's going to be some interesting stuff.
Yeah, we get the wrestlers to do that all the time. This is whoever you're watching the Elite Pro Wrestling Alliance, and not to go too far off topic. I remember a few years back, Ric Flair came in to do our show, and he's in the back, and I said, "Hey, is there a way you could just cut a quick promo for us?" He's like, "Well, my agent wants $1,000, but I'll do it for you for nothing." And he's standing in front of our logo, the Elite logo. He's standing in front of me like, "This is your boy Ric Flair, 16 times. Woo! You're world champion, and you're watching the Elite Pro Wrestling Alliance." And he starts wooing, and I'm just standing there. I'm literally like wiping a tear out of my eyes. Like, "Was that all right for you?" I'm like, "It's beautiful." I need a minute.
Now let me hit record.
He hasn't said anything, but Stan Lee will be at the Baltimore Comic Con. He'll cut a promo for you.
Yeah.
That'll be fantastic.
Excelsior.
Yeah.
Well,
True believer.
boy, that's a whole other topic, isn't it? The way the cons want to keep you from everybody. Like, now
Yeah.
they don't even want to let you see the guy unless you're paying
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Behind an iron
I'm
gate.
surprised he's not riding around the Pope Mobile.
The Stan Lee mobile.
Oh, reminds me of last summer up in Uniontown, they had the Wienermobile from Oscar Mayer, and I entered you get a whole day to take the Wienermobile anywhere you want.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, I'd have been by.
Oh, man.
That
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Yeah.
You know the jokes are just writing themselves, but I'm going to
Yes,
keep
they
it to
are.
myself.
Oh, my gosh. It's gonna turn out so good.
Man in the Wienermobile, are you?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I would have
That's
that
the story of my
Wienermobile.
life.
I'd jump in the Wienermobile, I'd drive to everybody's house, I'd grab Tim on his back porch, and we'd hit the road.
I got the wieners, you bring the buns.
Oh!
Oh.
Ba-doom-sh.
B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
So it's been-
But I digress.
But I digress. Hey, that reminds me. Remember that article Peter David used to write at the back? But I digress in the back of CBG.
I
Yes.
did.
Whatever happened to CBG? Did they just stop, or did it go the way of TV Guide and alter their format?
My guess is it's probably electronic now, maybe.
Really?
I mean, I don't. You know what's funny? You mentioned that, and when you said that word, CGC, I went, oh, crap! I forgot completely about.
Does Austin even know what CBG
CBG
is?
Comic book.
the Comic Buyer's Guide.
Yeah.
And it was like the size of like a National Enquirer. It kind of had a periodical flavor to it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the cost, but it was very negligible. They would give them away at the cons.
It used to be like the Wall Street Journal. It's like a folded up paper, like
Yep.
a paper
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And it was like, it was staple, but it was, it was, I don't know, 100 pages or so.
Oh yeah, there were really cool articles in it, and they discussed certain values of comics and what have you. I mean, I thought it was pretty informative. It was really cool.
There was a classified ads section in the back where people that were trying to sell their books, like you could mesh up. And I mean, maybe that answers the question.
Yes.
The internet kind of
Yeah.
Oh, the
stepped in
internet,
on all
yeah,
that.
fix all that.
But yeah, they would have reviews, they'd have interviews and stuff, and it felt very much like an industry, like a dirt sheet, like an industry, ear to the ground kind of a paper, as opposed to Wizard that was very much a glossed over. Like Wizard was the Blockbuster Video of that
Yeah.
stuff, very
Yeah.
sanitized
Right.
and polished, and this was more the Potomac Video.
Well, it's
Oh, there's a throwback.
yeah,
Video
it's
Express.
sort of
Yeah.
like what we're doing here, though. If you think about it, like some
Yeah.
of the articles and things, covered topics are similar things to like what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and to me, that's one of the great things about this. When we decided to do this podcast, it was cool because we're all bringing a different perspective. And then,
Absolutely.
as we getting to add Austin, a completely different perspective
Yep.
than
Yes.
what we all had. And Gary, I think, is just as much in a different direction,
Right.
So everybody brings it, but at the same time, none of us are beholden to anyone to have to censor our opinions or you know what I mean. It's not something where what will the sponsors think?
Yeah.
What will the advertisers?
What sponsors?
Hey, right. Hey, the closest we get to sponsors is the Wienermobile, and that's only because I entered. We didn't even win.
We didn't win. Dang it.
But it's very much like this is just our straight up opinion. Because what are you going to do? Not listen to it anymore? Then don't.
Yeah.
Don't pay attention to that statement.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Please listen.
What you gonna do, Marvel? Change your comics for the better?
Oh, no.
You gonna do it right?
Yeah.
What?
Because we hate you.
Oh.
I don't hate you, Marvel. I'm mad at you sometimes.
Yeah. Marvel hurts us.
Marvel.
Disappointed.
I went through. I don't know if you guys saw that. There's like nationwide there are comic stores that are boycotting the whole Legacy thing as far as ordering for it.
Wow.
And they're basically getting the very basic books. And I'm not actually ordering other than one variant, which was the Fantastic Four variant. That's the only one I ordered. I didn't go past that because as I sit there and look, it's not like just a conscious decision. I thought, it'd be really cool to have those and be able to offer them. But I can't afford to sit on 10 copies of something that I'm selling one of.
Right there behind you. How many copies of Secret Empire are weighing that shelf down?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you know what? I looked at a lot of the covers. A lot of the regular covers are nice, but it seems to me that the variants are purposefully. I want that.
Sure.
I'm not saying I like all of them, but I looked at the majority of the ones I saw. I'm like, man, they are really cool variants. And the sad thing is, this is what's happening because people are not going to be able to acquire those. They may like to have those, but I think it's going to take attention to people aren't going to pay attention to the story or reading it, and because the money grab thing.
Yep, the money grab. They should have, again, it's part of their apology tour, and again, they're not losing any money at all to do it. Those covers should have been variants the way the X-Men Jim Lee book in 91 was a variant. You can pick any one you want. And if nothing else, that's a nice little focus group for them. Say, well, look, we sold all these ones that look like the 1970s cover of the Falcon, and we didn't sell any of this one. Maybe we should do this more. Maybe this should be more of a look.
Yeah, they're enticing. I look at it, and I guess for me too, being an old timer, I look at it. Those things mean some of the way that the covers were illustrated, the variants, means something to me.
Yeah.
Because they're aping something or they're copying something that I remember which was very relevant to me in either the 70s, 60s, what have you.
Sure.
Anytime I collect the Fantastic Four #1. Anybody does a variant of that, I love that. Just seeing that, I was like, that I wouldn't really even care what the story was. I like that.
What's really upsetting for me, and again, I'm the younger guy, but it seems DC still gives like a lot of focus towards making good books, and really keeping their audience happy, and Marvel just doesn't. And the last really good time, like I was saying, before the podcast started, that I felt like Marvel did a really good job at trying to do a great book was the Civil War book, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that entire series and the entire span of that series was everything that they had. But Marvel does so much now outside of the books, and they make so much money off of that my concern is that they no longer care to give their best effort to the books. Because and I know it's just one overarching thing, and Marvel Studios and Marvel Comics just are separate under the same umbrella, but if you're putting so much of your resources towards what is your cash cow right now, because Marvel movies outsell any other company right now for any other movies, period.
Yeah.
That's
what props up the comic book part of it, too.
Well,
it should.
And I hope they would have looked at that like, you know what, this gives us a little breathing room to experiment and to try some new and different and exciting things. And one could argue that sometimes I guess they're doing that, but the other argument is it looks more like they're just using it as a way to try to jip people out of more money for less.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that would really, really help overall is one-shots. Just start throwing out one-shots. Even if you see they already got rid of Wolverine, Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk. There's several Spider-Man books. But even if they got rid of everything that comes out, almost every title that comes out monthly, just make them one-shots. This month we're releasing 30 one-shots. Next month we're releasing 30 more. And then see what comes of it a little bit. I don't know, I don't know.
Wolz and I were having that conversation before about how some of my favorite Marvel stories have been one-shots.
Yes.
Sure.
Spider-Man Noir was fantastic.
For me, it was, and this is where I go back to the idea that maybe we're not paying as close attention to the books as we did when we were younger and had more free time on our hands. Because to me, I would sit there and say, man, when Infinity War came out, I was in like the 9th or 10th
You were on
grade.
top of it.
I was on top of all of it. I loved everything that was coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, Infinity War crossed over into all the titles, and I bought all the titles.
Yeah, but who can't sit aside and read a one-shot? I can do that.
Right.
I'm pretty busy too, but I can take the time to read a one-shot.
But I guess was Infinity War really that great, or was I just that invested?
Infinity War, both.
And you had the ability and time to be invested as well.
Right, exactly. Like Secret Wars. I mean, that was probably closer to your jam.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And it was good, and you're on board with it.
Yeah.
So is there anyone to say, well, Civil War II was horrible?
It was trash.
Yeah.
You know how you guys were. I'm sorry.
No,
it was trash.
There is nothing to apologize
And I got
for.
so angry because what you just talked about with Infinity War, I did the same thing with Civil War 2. The second I saw that text, I was like, this is a continuation. And I went and got all of them. And it was nothing like the first one.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed.
Yep.
The big sparking off point of Hawkeye shooting the Hulk. Sorry, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
I think they know by now.
Yeah, thank God.
But
like, had nothing on
Somebody's
Goliath
had to
being...
have told them.
That shock moment wasn't the same as Goliath being smited down by Ragnarok.
Right.
Like, that kind of tore at the heartstrings because they had an entire page and panel of just all of the superheroes' reactions to, oh, man, it just went down. And then to see how everyone had adjusted from that, because at that point, knowing it's a Marvel story, you're like, all right, now they're going to get their heads on straight and say we shouldn't be doing this. And then it's like, nope, Cap's still looking in shock and awe, and Iron Man just punches him square in the jaw. And it's like, oh, you thought that this was going to end that? and it just kind of dragged at my heartstrings so much that it made me invest in it. And they're not doing anything like that now. It sucks.
I agree. All right, here's a fun question for you. It's not original to me. Somebody had actually asked me this in the store. In the group of us here, Marvel can have 12 titles. What are they? We can come up with any 12 titles you want. I mean, I'm going to pitch a few of my own. For me personally, I start with Amazing Spider-Man. Has to be. I mean, you guys stop me if I'm.
I think we can all hold hands on that one.
I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to,
Sure.
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man. We're all on board.
Yep.
Fantastic Four.
Yep.
All
Yep.
on board. Incredible Hulk.
Yes.
Yep.
All on board. X-Men. Straight up X-Men.
One title.
One title.
Not blue and gold. Just
one
X-Men.
X title.
Yes.
One X title.
From there, I don't know that we need an Iron Man personally, because I think Iron Man falls in the Avengers. If you have a
That's what I'm saying. You gotta
I would
keep
give.
an Avengers
Actually,
book.
I don't know if I'd keep the Avengers.
really
Yeah.
okay. What about Captain?
Yeah, I would keep.
I think
I'd
you
keep
still
Cap.
need a cap.
And that's what I was going to say. But in Avengers, if it's just a core team. Just a core
Like
team.
the original.
I think that
Yeah.
you could have
Like
a World
four.
of Avengers book,
But
where,
we got the X-Men. I don't want to have a bunch of teams. All right, never mind. I'm just jumping ahead.
That's
But,
all right.
but
Yeah.
what about two teams? Just leave it at the Avengers and the X-Men.
Well, you got the
Oh,
FF.
FF.
Yeah.
The thing is if you have the Avengers as your fifth book, that also eliminates having to have any of those guys have their own titles.
Like Falcon, Cap, Iron Man.
yeah, like you kind of tie them all.
Yes.
in. So
And-
And we'd be able to be exposed to those characters, and you would be not really losing anything.
right,
Yes.
and if you had a one shot on one of them later, okay. But so we're all in agreement. FF, Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers, and Incredible Hulk. From there, where do we go? Is there? I don't think there needs to be a separate Wolverine book, does there?
Not if there's X-Men.
See, and this
Even
brings
though
up-
he holds his own very well.
Yeah.
And
I would say he's probably one of the
Can it
few
be old-
characters that would hold their own.
Can it be the
Okay.
version now? Can it be Old Man Logan now? Because I really like it right now. That'd be
yeah,
cool.
it's pretty
Yeah, if it
sweet.
was old. Yeah,
Black Panther.
And Logan. But
Yeah.
does he fall in Avengers though?
he could be an
He
Avenger.
could, but with as much as there is just by himself.
I mean, that's
I'm
true.
not. I'm not opposed to it, but
I'm not opposed to it, but I think that argument can be made for everybody on the team.
That's true.
they've tried to do it a million times. I tell you what, if Chris Bacalla was still doing the book, I'd say Doctor Strange. But I'm not. I'll throw one out there possibly. It could be because I think there's two that obviously fans would want. I think Deadpool and Venom.
Definitely have to have Deadpool. I think Venom could be carried in Spider-Man.
Punisher. Are you willing to give up any of the Defenders? Punisher, Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones.
I think you could have a book that just kind of covers
for the
that.
Defenders.
Street level fighters. I don't know. And I'm going to go back.
I'm
and say,
one of the hugest
Sorry,
Defender fans in the world. I mean, old school plus the new school.
Hellcat. Yeah.
I'm going to go back
Son of
though
Satan.
with Black Panther because I
Hell's
think
from-
that
oh my
if you
God.
have those anchored books, you got like 6 anchor books. You need to have, in the interest of growing into the future, if 6 of your books are anchor titles, the big heavy hitters, the other 6 need to be like proven characters that have the ability to develop and go to that next level. And Black Panther would be the first one on that list.
But you also want to hold true to the Trinity in comics, like especially with the big two. And this is something I had a conversation with someone about the other day. DC and Marvel both have a Trinity. So Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Thor, Cap, Iron Man that represent the technological aspect of things, the meta side of things, and then also the supernatural. Because that's such an ingrained part of the storybook telling now. So if
But
you
all
don't
three of
have-
those guys are in Avengers, though.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, but if you don't have like a Doctor Strange, a solo book to carry one of those 3 aspects,
Right.
then who would you use?
Right.
I
Okay.
would find Stephen Strange to being some part of a team anyway. For me, it's me. I can't help. I can't let him go.
If Son of Satan's on the team and Doctor Strange is on the team, is there another
can't do
guy
it.
that you give a book to?
I've got a soft spot for the original Ghost Rider.
And that's what I was going to say. I was
See,
going to bring up Ghost Rider.
What I do is I say one of the books is we bring back Marvel Comics Presents, and you have 4 stories and anthologies that can develop those minor
Yes.
characters.
And we track down Sam Keith and make him draw every cover.
Yeah. Well. Then again, you could feature guys like
track down.
you could feature guys like
With tortures like
And a
we
Ghost
knew you were in
Rider.
there, you
Yeah,
son of a.
we could feature guys like that, Ghost Rider, whoever.
Well, even if, but if,
Angry
you,
Man
Bob.
Thing. They used to
if you
put
did a
these-
Ghost Rider story, you
Angry
could
Bob.
feature Man Thing, you could feature Son
Right.
of Satan, Doctor Strange.
Yeah, see, I like all the dark side guys. You
You could bring them all in into one book if you had one central character that interacted with
With
all
all
of
his
them.
curly phone cord.
I'm going to say
covers.
that in the
I'm going to say not Moon Knight.
no,
The story in his own book.
Right.
I I think a book that kind of goes off into the corner, and I think I get a little support from you guys, but I think Man Thing would be a cool book to have his own title. When you've got 6 or 7 books that are holding up everything.
As long as you keep R.L. Stein off.
Oh my God, yes.
Don't get you started, right?
Jeez. Oh, I'm still smarting on that one.
I like the Man Thing. I'm a big Man Thing fan.
Ready enough Man Thing.
Yeah, like an anthology title.
Yeah.
So we're sitting at, for those keeping track,
11-teen.
Fantastic Four, Amazing Spider-Man, Incredible Hulk, Wolverine, the X-Men, Deadpool, Doctor Strange, the Avengers. Marvel Comics presents. We got 3
What
titles
about a team
left.
up again? No, we were talking about that now.
The Marvel team up
Yeah.
thing?
You not keep.
And 2 and 1?
Heroes
Yeah.
for Hire.
Yeah.
Knock it out, yeah.
So it's just like, what are you guys doing?
I'm looking around to see, did we really forget it? You know,
I think we need
Thor's gonna be-
a brand new character for Marvel, and I'm thinking Paraphrenic.
We'll throw him on the pile.
Yeah. Paraphrenic is Kramer's book, by the way. That's not here, so big shout out to the Crane. Everybody's looking at all the walls. Everyone's looking at all the books. We're all scanning like madmen trying to find 2 more titles.
I think we've cut. I mean, I think
That's just sad.
Yeah.
I'm still Ghost Rider. I'm looking at
If
I
they
think
did
that's
it right,
right.
I would go with an Inhumans book, but
that crossed my mind as I scanned
Please,
along
yes.
there.
yeah. I wouldn't mind a horror title.
How about Inhumans with Jay Lee doing it? I miss Jay Lee.
Black Bolt.
Where are you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
A horror title.
Yeah.
You know, where creatures roam or something. Just,
Yeah,
I
oh
don't know.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's
It doesn't
that's
necessarily have to tie
that's
in.
me.
you know?
Where
You know what?
creatures
I
dwell.
let me tell you something. I really like Monsters Unleashed. I like what it does right now. It's the only Marvel title, and that and Venom are the only 2 I think I'm currently really reading.
What was the book that Marvel did that was about just the Joe Blow guy? Who's just like an everyday dude that happens to be around when all of the superhero fights start going
Marvels?
down.
Marvels.
Yeah.
The Alex Ross.
Yeah, Alex Ross did it. It was like the point of view of the average New Yorker as
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
crazy stuff.
Gotta
going
have one
on.
of those.
I got it right here.
Gotta have one of those in
I
there.
actually have this poster at my house rolled up. It's probably in my top 10 favorite images of all time, and that is when the angel is saving the mutant girl from the hate mongers. It just speaks to so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait till the next issue of that came out. Whenever they did that, man, that was amazing.
And that Alex Ross, painted every panel. That's crazy.
Yep.
And you know what? If you need to pick a central person to focus it on that's just the everyday Joe Blow, it'd be Ben Ehrlich from Daily Bugle. Since he interacts with so many of the different characters already anyway.
Yeah.
And just have it like through the lens of the photographer who catches all of the photos of everything going down.
When you got the Sentinels.
That's it, man.
Right.
That's it right there. That's what I'm
It's
saying.
incredible. Yeah. No, obviously you guys can't see it, but if you ever get the chance, Marvels, it was the series from Alex Ross who painted it, and it was, as Austin said, it's the point of view of the average New Yorker just as all these crazy and amazing things happen. What I really liked about it, too, was it was the dawn of the Marvel Universe.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
from
like
the beginning.
62,
Yes.
63. It's not some new
Well,
version.
this is the
And the
original
artwork,
Torch too.
Yeah.
The artwork is what sells that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that's like Marvel's Kingdom Come.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
painted style. It's just beautiful.
The fact that the thing has a clean exit.
Yeah, at the wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just.
It doesn't get any better than that.
It really doesn't.
So we're up to 11 titles, or did we get to 12
Yeah,
now?
it's funny. I thought we were gonna have to really start whittling it down, and we don't.
And you know what? That's what the Marvel Universe used to be.
Right.
Yeah, that was
And
it.
it worked
You-
okay. And it worked okay.
Yeah, you had the checklist in the back of all your comics, and when you're a kid like me, and you got to write in them. I had my checklist.
Yeah.
I marked what I had and what I didn't.
It has to be so much harder on the DC side because
Yeah.
you can't cut out people like Aquaman. You just gotta.
Well, I
How much
can.
we want to. Yeah,
I can.
I cut him out as a retailer. I cut him out as a fan. I cut him out as a human being.
Zinger.
Like usually, if I'm watching like a trailer and he's on the screen, I go get something to eat.
How about like a?
In DC, there's a lot of characters. I'm sorry to say, I could cut a lot of.
Well, we
characters.
got to keep Batman and Superman
Yeah.
and Wonder Woman, and that's all.
I got the last title. I got the last title from Marvel,
I just wanted to see Austin.
and that's all.
I looked over at Austin, and you could see it like sticking. He went,
Because there's so many good ones.
I got the last Marvel title. I got it. A rotating villains gallery every month, done by one solid artist. from the villain's point of view. Goblin.
And that's where Venom maybe could exist also in Spider-Man.
Yeah, we could
Doc
combine
Ock.
that. Yeah, Doc Ock when he's
Scorpion.
marrying Aunt May. Just
because everybody is. I think definitely on board. The biggest hype in Marvel is a lot of the villains they created. That was the biggest. I think that's been their biggest thing, really.
Yeah.
Is Venom, the whole Goblin, Hobgoblin, all those characters.
Yeah.
The Goblin Knight.
And
the whole family.
when they started focusing on cool villains, and that's where people became. Those are the issues. Those are the things people became interested in.
Right.
Well, that Spider-Man 238 is still a pretty hot book.
Yeah.
Hobgoblin. That rings true.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool.
Well,
to
Todd
see
McFarlane's doing the signing. I will tell you, Amazing 300. Every third person in line is holding one of those.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Only like Brian Boland with everybody had Killing Joke until it got to me with the small things, and he looked down and he went,
Oh,
"That's refreshing."
pleasantly surprised. But I think a villain like a rogue gallery would be cool.
Yeah.
To look at it from the villain's point of view and like, this month we're going to talk about Joe Schmo. How did you become the Shocker? Whatever. Just stuff like that. Yeah.
You're the new Shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that would be cool. Kind of like Marvel Team Up. It's like one-shots each
Except
week.
it's all bad guys.
And that's really old school, but I love the team.
I
always love
I got that from scanning that book right up there. Bring on the bad guys.
Yep. Bring on the bad guys.
That's where I just come up with that.
Oh man, a Doctor Doom one shot.
Yeah.
Just really pour all into it.
I got a Doctor Doom one-shot laying around here somewhere.
Is that Marvel
Yeah, is it over there?
It's
annual or whatever?
Yeah, it's up there.
There's everything here, guys. You need to come in.
Yeah, guys. Well,
All of you.
As we
be here.
We bring it to a close. Does anybody have any closing comments? Anything they want to throw out before we call it a week?
I think I'm good. I did want to touch on something that we didn't really get to talk about last week. We were talking about like generations and stuff, and basically everybody can have everything they want right here in their hand in their phone, and everybody is just so used to that now. And I just wanted to say what a great time it was to grow up whenever we were young. Wolz, you were with me.
Yes.
The Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, DC had some of them too, those little pocket books.
Yeah.
That had like the first 10 issues of
Yes.
Spider-Man. That was my phone. I had that with me in my pocket almost everywhere I went when I was a kid.
I had the Fantastic
It's
Four,
dog-eared,
Spider-Man.
it's wore out.
Yep.
Everyone has that access. Well, let me look that up. And they can pull it up and look at that Spider-Man #1 cover.
Yep.
Like right here, right now, in real time, we could do that.
Yes.
I'd have to drive home, get my Spider-Man pocketbook out. It's all raggedy.
Yeah.
I'm just what a good time to be able
pocketbooks,
to remember
they were
that
cool.
and have that stuff.
Yes.
I was all, ask my mom. I was always dragging around a stack of Mad magazines, a stack of comic books, or 2 or 3 of those pocketbooks. I read them until I can't even read them now. I have to have you hold it over there so I can look at it because the print is so small.
Right.
They
were cool though. Very cool.
But I just wanted to convey that, you guys now, Austin, everybody, you all have it so good. Everything is right there.
I went on
palm of your hand.
YouTube and looked at the first Doctor Strange Tales 110. Somebody photographed not like a redo either. This was like a real old newsprint, and they had like some old Pink Floyd music in the background, and each little page flipped, and I read the
read the whole thing.
I increased the size of the screen. I'm like, wow.
There's a guy that did that with the Killing Joke.
Yeah. Oh, they're you'd be surprised. You can find a lot of them on there.
Yeah.
They do a lot of motion comics, and there's a lot of.
And I really enjoy it. Like I wish they would. The thing I found funny about was the speed, the pace up a lot. Like I'm ready to read the next family.
Right. So,
my buddy Dave and I, when we were in,
but did you light some incense while you were reading it?
Yeah.
we were in 7th or 8th
It's like
grade.
Four Secrets in the background.
We both had a subscription to Fantastic Four, and I would remember like my mail got to my house before his did, and I would call and say it's here.
You got it off the press quicker than him.
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't read it though until we got his. He'd get his, then we'd both read him, and then call each other. And it was almost like this unwritten who's getting through it first,
Right.
But then one of us would call the other one and just basically go over it with every theory and every idea we think is going to happen.
And here we are every weekend. It's pretty much the Bash Marvel comic hour.
I wish it wasn't though.
So do I. Marvel was my wheelhouse. You got to be. I mean, that's what I grew up.
But
on.
I've often
outside of Swamp Thing, seriously, in DC and Batman, Marvel was my wheelhouse.
I've often thanked. I do it a lot. I've thanked my mom for letting me have a cool childhood. letting me be exposed to that stuff and actually get to read it and have, and being
Rock on, Uncle Lefty.
being an only child, I'm not going to, be bawling around about that because I didn't have nobody to blame when I did something wrong. What I'm going to blame the dog? Dog's outside, you know. But being able to actually experience that stuff and have that as a memory, and I still have the books, so it's like, hey man, here they are. They're all dog-eared. I'm writing in them, and the cover's hanging off of one of them. But and then you can just pull out your phone and whip, look it up. It's like right there now. It's just, so you guys need to read those first 12 issues of Spider-Man. The original.
Yes.
You just need to do yourself a favor.
Yes. And the movie did somewhat of that justice.
Maybe the guys at Marvel need to do that. Read them.
And I've said it to several people that have come in, but I'd say it on the podcast now. We're at 50 Stately Street in Wiley Ford, West Virginia. We're right behind Blankenship. As you cross the bridge out of Cumberland, across the Canal Parkway. If you've never read a comic book, I'm not sure why you're listening to this, but my guess is that if you've never read a comic book, maybe you're sitting in the car listening to this through the speakers, which I know some people do, and you're the parent in the car or whoever, and you've never read a comic book. Stop in this store and let me give you a comic book to read. You don't have to buy it, nothing. Just stop in here and get something, just so you can have a little glimpse of what we're talking about. And if you think it's nothing, then you know what, you're not out anything. But if it's something,
winner.
Yeah, for real. So and I sincerely mean that. Please stop in and say, hey, I heard the podcast.
Where's my free book?
Where's my free book? And but seriously, stop in and do that, and please don't mind the cats. They make themselves at home. So, all right, guys. Well, it's been another week. We do miss. Who was it that was missing?
Pops Kramer. I'm in the doghouse now, baby.
I genuinely miss when Gary's here because he definitely brings quite a bit of insight.
One of my oldest and dearest friends.
Well, and he reins us in. He reins us in.
He's
he don't let us get too out of
sobering
control.
yang to our reckless yang.
He don't let us get too out of control.
But
I'm out of control.
All right. Was that some Regis Philbin SNL there?
Good. You like that?
It's starting to veer into...
The wheels are falling off the wagon.
This is veering into Calling All Heroes, the movie podcast territory. We better get out of here, dweebs. All right, guys. So I'm George.
Tim.
Austin.
Walls and Gracie.
Yeah.
And we will see you guys next week, hopefully with the Crame himself, Mr. Gary Kramer.
You know it.